All right, everyone, let's do this. How are you? Welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's called Is Breakfast Included? Thanks for stopping by. On the show this week, we talk with Mark Damian. Mark is a touring and session drummer. He's a composer, producer, music supervisor. He's done music for movie trailers. You might have heard some of his noises and his music in that. But currently, he's on tour with Jeff Skunk Baxter. Do you know who that is? Well, you should. Anyway, we talk about that. We talk about his lead out to LA from Michigan late in life, but how he made it work and how he hustled and networked and got to where he is now. He also talked about his favorite drummer, who I think you might have heard of. Anyway, it was a lot of fun and a great conversation. Let's check it out. Tell everyone who you are.
My name is Mark Damian. I am a drummer and audio engineer, music producer residing in lovely Sherman Oaks, California, just outside of Los Angeles. I guess it's part of Los Angeles County.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
we live in Jersey City, but you ask somebody in Jersey City, they go like, oh, we're in New York.
I was going to ask you where you guys are based out of. I thought it was Texas for some reason. Maybe I saw that wrong, but
no, I used to be in Texas.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Because I did my research on you guys too. I watched a couple great interviews that you guys did recently.
Oh,
maybe
thanks.
not even recently. Of course I had to watch the Keanu Reeves one. That guy knows bass stuff, man.
That old hack. No, he does. He would have talked about gear the entire time.
Oh, I've done 4-hour podcasts. Yeah. So you're like, at the beginning, you're like, oh, we won't take up too much of your time. I won't take up too much of your time because I can talk. I can especially talk about all this stuff behind me.
Right on, man.
But the Keanu Reeves interview was great. And, I watched a few of the other ones that were quite notable as well.
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. We appreciate that. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from, I say Detroit, Michigan, but if you really want to drill down, the small town of Carlton, Michigan, about 30 minutes south of, I was born in South Detroit.
Okay.
It's about the halfway point between Toledo, Ohio, and Detroit. So I spent a lot of time, playing both of those markets in my earlier years. But I'm a Michigan cat, and I moved to Los Angeles in 2012. Okay. So kind of tardy party out here, but
Do you come from a musical family?
I do not. I get that question a lot because I've been playing since I was 3 years old, and it's kind of in me, So everybody assumes, oh yeah, you have to have some sort of musicianship in your family tree. I'm it. It all landed on me. So I'm thankful for that.
Oh, wow.
Now, which comes with a great lack of understanding from the rest of the family. Why do you want to be in this crazy business? But yeah, it's been my life, and but I'm it. Nobody. I think my nieces took some music lessons, and one of them is kind of still dabbling in the singing area, but we'll see how that pans out.
But
how did you start so young?
How did I start so young? I gotta blame the parents for putting me behind the band. They used to go to dances a lot. Okay. Big Polish family I'm from, and we'd have these parish festivals in Michigan every summer, and we'd go to all of them, and they'd be on the dance floor. But what are we going to do with this 3-year-old kid that we have to lug around? We're going to put him in a safe place. We're going to put him behind the stage, and I had full view of the drummer, and I was hooked. Oh. And because you see all these people having a blast on the dance floor, and who's the guy in charge of that groove?
Yeah.
And I'm sitting right behind him, and I was just infatuated. And I'm doing my little air drum thing or tapping on my lap along with the music, and one day the drummer just turned around and said, "Here, kid," and gave me a pair of drumsticks. And you would have thought I just won the lottery because I was running around like, I got drumsticks, and then just started beating the hell out of everything at the house. So my parents are like, "All right, we kind of have to contain the damage that he's doing with these drumsticks." So they bought me a drum kit. Now I don't know how much how good I was at 3, but I can say that by the time I was 7, 8, I was asking for proper, private lessons because I knew there was a right way to do it, and I wanted to know. I wanted to, yeah.
What was your first kit?
Well, when I was 3, I'm sure it was one of those Toys R Us things. I blew through 2 kits. I remember blowing through 2 kits pretty quickly because the heads were paper, which is, how long is that going to last with a 3-year-old bashing on it? But I remember for my 9th birthday, I got a TKO percussion kit, and that was a little step in the right direction. It didn't have paper heads on it anymore, and kept on adding on to that, and then eventually I got a nice Tama kit with Sabian cymbals because my idol Roger Taylor of Duran Duran had Tama and Sabian cymbals.
Right on.
So I had my first proper kit, played Tama through the 80s. And then I signed on to the roster with DW when I was doing a lot more professional work. So I've been a DW guy for probably since the late '90s.
Yeah, they just got acquired by Roland, correct?
Yeah, they did indeed.
Yeah,
indeed. John Good and Dave Lombardi got a nice check, I'm sure.
What was it about Roger Taylor that made him your guy?
God, where do I start? We could do the whole hour on Duran. My undying love for Duran Duran.
Oh, we don't hear enough about Duran.
Yeah, I'm sure. I wasn't sure. Well, that's why I'm like, I know who you are and what you do. So I'm like, do I talk about it? Is that going to be awkward? But you've got all the, I've watched the Nick Rhodes interview. That was a blast. And then I have terrible insomnia. So at about 4 a.m. this morning, I popped out of bed. I'm like, oh God, now I'm wide awake. What do I do? I'm going to check out some more interviews with Bernie and Lisa. And then I saw that you guys talked with Roger, and you would have thought I was a 14-year-old girl in 1984. I'm like, oh my God, Roger, because Roger doesn't talk too much, and it's always a blast hearing him and his side of things. So what was it about? I mean, I loved the energy that Duran had or has. I loved the 16th note driving, drum patterns, and John's bass playing was just amazing. And Simon's lyrics and the keyboard. I mean, every entity of that band I can go on and on about, but I won't.
Yeah.
But they were my first concert. I was 9 years old, 1986. And that would have been the Notorious tour. And sadly, not sad, because I discovered who Steve Ferroni was that year. Roger and Andy were not on that tour. That was the first time there was just the 3 of them. But I discovered, as I said, Steve Ferroni, which became one of my favorites as well. And the amazing Warren Cucurullo on guitar. So that was my first Joe Louis Arena, Detroit, Michigan, 1986. It was an amazing show. Had nosebleed seats, but enjoyed every bit of it. And I think I've seen him probably twice on every tour since then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We got a true fan on here.
It's disgusting. It really is disgusting. Me and my sister both. And that was the thing, is like being such a young kid. It was my sister, Lisa, who was collecting all the cassettes of Duran and Depeche and Culture Club and all the stuff of that time. But I kept grabbing the Duran stuff because I just loved the drumming. I loved the energy and the vibe. And I would just put the headphones on and play along with this stuff. That's how I, just learned how to play, pop and rock and synth stuff and yeah. So, and then, like I said, Steve Ferroni came in, the Nile Rodgers production of the Notorious record, unbelievable. And then you start going kind of backwards. You start like, well, who do these guys listen to? And you discover Bowie, you discover Chic, you discover Roxy Music, another one of my favorites. All the Brian Ferry stuff that he did solo. I mean, and Steve Ferroni played on that. So you start to, I was the kid that was reading all the liner notes of everything. And because it was tangible back then, You'd buy the record and you could read, who's this Nile Rodgers cat? And okay, now he's on the Like a Virgin record, and now he's on Steve Winwood's record, and now he's a B-52s. Who is this guy? So I started getting really infatuated with the production side of things too.
Yeah.
And that's what led me down the road. I think a lot of mix engineers are either current drummers or angry has-been drummers. I don't know, because I think it stems from our interest in how do we get this instrument to sound good on a recording or in a live form, because it's not easy. It's the hardest of the instrumentation to really get a good sound. The drum sound makes or breaks your record, as far as I'm concerned.
It does. Yeah. No, you're 100% right. I said crazy, but I didn't.
Crazy, right?
You're crazy for playing that instrument.
You said I know. Every time I'm loading and unloading my gear at one of these tape fillers in LA, I'm like, boy, harmonicas sound really good right now.
You said something a second ago, like you got into that, then you started going, well, who do they listen to? And it's funny because you don't hear that from newer musicians, like the going back and finding out what they did and who their influences were. Yeah.
I hate to dog on the new generation, but that's one of my beefs. And I do a lot of teaching. I teach drum lessons here in North Hollywood. My studio's in North Hollywood. Anyone in the area listening, I'm available.
Yeah.
And I love teaching. I've been teaching since I was 18 years old. And one of the things that I stress with that, when I get a new student, it's like, okay, so who's your favorite band? Oh, so-and-so. Well, who's the drummer? Oh, I don't know. Well, why don't you know?
Yeah.
I don't tear them apart on the subject, but I'm just like, you should know who these people are if you're interested in what they do. And I think in their defense, I think it just purely stems from the lack of the tangible object that you used to go to the record store and buy.
Yeah.
And that went away in the early 2000s. And thankfully, finally, because I'm doing a lot of producing of younger artists too here in Los Angeles. And so I'm in charge of going to the TuneCore profile and putting their stuff out for them. And now it's become a thing where the credits are being put into the Apple Music profile, into the Spotify profile.
I've noticed that.
And you can at least click somewhere and find out who these who these people are, which I think is important because, that's how studios stayed in business. That's how mastering engineers stayed in business. That's how the whole thing went. When so-and-so recorded I don't know, what's an example? I'm a professional musician and I have a record contract. I want the sound that band got. Where did they record it? And you could open up the thing and see it, okay, they recorded at the Power Station in New York. They recorded at the Village Recorder in Santa Monica. I live right down the street from the old Sound City building. I don't know if that's still active or not, but
I think so.
No. Great movie though. Great documentary on that Grohl did.
How did you get from Detroit to LA? What age were you? How'd you decide to move?
I was in LA terms, I was ancient. I was 35.
Oh.
I know, exactly.
Oh.
Believe me, I mean, it was 2012. I loaded up my my SUV, my beloved 2005 Envoy. I miss that truck. And all my personal belongings were in the back seat, and all my studio equipment, my recording gear, my mic pre's, my everything, basses and guitars, because I play all those things, were loaded in a trailer, in a U-Haul trailer, which was terrifying to go to sleep at a hotel on the way. Like, it's like my whole life's in this vehicle and in this U-Haul. God forbid anything happened to it, because it does happen. And I drove for 3.5, 4 days. Stopped in Vegas for a hang. I got here in I want to say February of 2012. and just started hitting the pavement hard. I had been flying out for probably about a year and a half. Every few months, I would fly out to LA and really learn the layout of the land as best I could. I was old school. I went to the AAA office and got maps of like, okay, that's what the valley is. Okay, Sherman Oaks, Studio City, North Hollywood, then the hills, and then downtown, and there's Hollywood, and there's Santa Monica. Learned it all. Okay, where do you go? You go to North Hollywood because it's the artist district,
Yeah.
i.e., the cheap seats, which are not so cheap anymore. North Hollywood is they're pricing us out of here too. I make the joke that we're all going to be living in Panorama City by 2025. But it's yeah. So I learned the layout of the land physically, and then started figuring out, okay, just setting up meetings. 10 people that I knew out here turned into 20, turned into 30. Had a nice stable of musicians that I could. Oh yeah, just come on out. We'll help you out. We'll help you get gigs and blah blah blah, all this great stuff. And then when I finally got here and got a place in North Hollywood, none of them answered their phone. So I love telling that story because that is so LA. Yeah, get here, we'll help you out, we'll help you. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. And then dial tone. It's like, okay, great. So I started from scratch. And then you just hit the hangs. I'm sure you guys have spent time in LA. You know the
Yeah.
deal here. It's like back then it was you go to the Baked Potato on Monday, you go to Cafe Cordial on Tuesday, you go to Lucky Strike, on wherever the open jams were.
Yeah.
The open jams of LA were, okay, we have the house band that is the who's who of whoever's not on tour right now in these mega bands playing in a room this size. The Baked Potato is the size of my studio. It's like tiny. And there's Danny Carey from Tool playing drums. It's like, okay. Wow. Neat. And then you try to muscle your way on stage and play. So they do the house band thing. They play 4 or 5 songs. They tear it up. They make you feel like garbage. You don't want to play at that point. And then you go up and you try to win them over. And that's even hard. It was hard for me anyway, because I'm not aggressive in that nature of like, I'm not throwing elbows to get up on stage. And that's really what you kind of have to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm one of those bashful, like, oh, you want me to play? Okay, I'll play. And then
I turn. Yeah.
But yeah, you have to be kind of, that aggressive to like, because I think it took me about 6 months to actually play a note after going to those hangs. And you're blowing money on the valet and the cover charge and the 2-drink minimum and I'm like, wow, this is intense money spending here, and I haven't played a note. So I finally got on stage at the Baked Potato, and that's how you meet people.
Yeah. It's like any industry. It's you said something earlier. You moved out there in 2012, which was right before, the TikToks and all that. Yeah, well, not really right before, but just as it was leading.
It was probably going on, but I just didn't know about it. I still don't have a TikTok page.
Well, yeah. And you said something earlier, like you went out, you met people. What is it about, in your opinion, today's artists that don't know how to network? Even what we do is in teching, and someone says, how do I get a gig? I'm like, you just network while you're on the road. You just talk and you meet.
Is that true that I would think that the youth is better at networking?
Or they network in a different way.
They're networking not in a face-to-face manner. I think that's what you're probably driving at.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the same way that we talked about. No tangible piece of, there's no CD or vinyl that they're looking at to learn these names. Everything is on these damn phones or on these laptops or these phones. And it's just like they probably, I can't speak for them. I mean, I have enough younger students to kind of, I'm picking their brain as much as they're learning from me, because I'm like, what is the mindset here? But the face-to-face and the handshakes and I call it the handshakes and kissing babies. You got to go out there and do that. you know, going to NAMM, you know, in Anaheim every year was it's just I haven't been in a few years, probably since pre pandemic, but you know, I mean, I don't know that they're even I worked with a young artist a few years back, and she literally did not want to answer phone calls. She didn't want to text messaging, fine, emails, fine. But to even have that conversation in real time on the phone,
Yeah.
scary to her, you know? And it's like, wow, you know, that we've really lost a lot with what we've gained with technology.
Yeah. I think texting and like you said is so not personal.
It's hiding behind.
And you know, on a phone call you can't really like hide the annoyance. It's almost like this right now. It's almost like this. Like if I say something annoying, I'm gonna see Lisa roll her eyes.
See it happening.
I would never.
And it's the same thing. Like when you're driving down the street and somebody cuts you off and you beep the horn like you're saying F you, man.
Yeah.
But if you're face to face with that person, are you gonna react that way?
I had to get used to the horn beeping. You come out to LA, you start, you know, you just said it was 6 months before you got a note in at the Baked Potato. Did you start networking to be a session drummer out there immediately? Did you make phone calls? Did you shake hands and kiss babies and that type of shit, you know?
Yeah. Well, I did all the above, and I really I wanted to do the session work, if there is such a thing anymore. I mean, the thing about the session work is you still have Josh Freese and Vinny Caliuta in the mix.
Yeah.
So you're not going to, I mean, there's only so much you can hope for, because those guys are getting the calls for the big stuff. And the sessions have dried up. But I really wanted to not have to play in Los Angeles proper. I didn't want to do a lot of the whole Whiskey A Go-Go Viper Room things.
Yeah.
I was fine with doing them. But I call them the date filler gigs. Like you do those, you know, while you're home from the tour that you want to be on.
Yeah.
You come to LA to get out of LA, you know, you come to LA to get on the road with a notable artist.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I wanted. I love the travel. I love touring. I love hotel rooms. I love, you know, you know, I love the travel, and I love I love both sides of it. I really enjoy the creative process in the studio, depending on who you're working with, of course. I love the mixing and producing aspect of it. If I'm called in to do that sort of thing, if I'm not doing this, you know, the drum stuff, I do mix sessions and produce other bands, and sometimes I'm not even playing on the record. I have the same passion for the audio side as I do for the drumming side. And I love the studio bit. I'm a gearhead. I love me a good quality, you know, LA2A that I'm looking at right now. Like I'm you know, the gear is fascinating to me, and you know, give me a Neve console, I'll be happy. But there is that, you know, there is that ego driven, the instant gratification of playing for an audience and hearing the response.
Yeah.
I love going to concerts. I love the atmosphere. I love the energy. We're all just selling energy at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
And it's the best. And I mean, you go to a concert and it's filled with 20,000 people that have a love for the same artist that you have a love for. Like you're all there for the same reason. So you can talk to people, and oh, how many concerts have you been to? I'm still a fanboy, you know, like I said, with the Duran thing. You know, my sister flew to Ibiza. That's how diehard we are. You know, I didn't get to go to that because I was doing something with some Hall of Famer named Skunk Baxter. But I had a gig, you know, but she went to like, we're diehard, and you know, I love the instant gratification, and I love playing even the medium-sized shows where you actually get to go as the artist or somebody playing with a big name artist and go to the merch booth after the show and get real contact with the
Yeah.
people that paid good money to see you. I love it. Maybe it's the ego, man. I just dig it. I don't think it's ego driven. I really genuinely, sincerely enjoy people enjoying what I do, and playing with somebody like Skunk Baxter, who's been around the block. He's got
Yeah.
people that come to the shows that are they have very high standards. They're Steely Dan fans.
Yeah.
They want to hear stuff, perfectly. And I like to think that we deliver. And to go out and talk to those people after the show is just, I love it.
Cool.
When you're working with other artists, either as a producer or a session drummer, is it hard for you to find a balance between your input and their vision?
I don't think so. I like to be as diplomatic as possible. I've seen how it works when it's not like that, and I don't like it. I've been on the other side. I've been co-producing with people that were not very nice to their artists. It's just like, you're all there. They came to me. If I'm producing something, they came to me, or if I'm even playing drums on something as a session guy. I had the question asked a couple interviews ago about, when you got the Skunk Baxter gig, did he let you play what you want, or did he say, and I said, well, I asked first. I'm like, do you want, because he's got a solo record out, and that's what we were touring off of the last 2 years. Speed of Heat is the name of the record. And I'm like, do you guys want this note for note? Because I'm fine to do that. I can do that. Or do you want me to, they're like, we want you to be you. That's why we got you, So it's the same thing as a producer. If somebody likes a mix that I did, or somebody likes the production that I did, or how I worked with an artist, they're buying my service for that reason. And it never becomes, and like, I'm never shutting anyone down. There's a way to shut down bad ideas nicely. And thankfully, the last two artists that I've worked with, Synthheart is a band that I just did 3 singles for. Lovely folks. And Monarch is another band that I did 1 song so far for, called Roller Coaster Kisses. I highly recommend checking it out.
Yeah, we will.
And it's like, the Synthheart band is very you're hip to the band Churches.
Yep.
Oh, love Churches. And when they sent me their demo, I'm like, it's my Churches. I get to produce like my version of Churches. This is going to be great. So I'm always excited about it. My excitement hopefully kind of gets into their world, and they get excited, and they love coming to the studio to work. So it's never and if they have some sort of weird idea, I'll explain why it's not a good idea in a nice way. But nobody's ever really come to me with anything so ridiculous that I said, that's just the dumbest shit I've ever heard. Like, what are you thinking? I'm just happy, going back to the younger generation, I'm just happy that these younger bands and artists are acknowledging that they can't do it all themselves in their basement or their bedroom on their laptop. The producers are coming back into style at that level. I'm not at the Nile Rodgers level, obviously, but who is really?
I was gonna say, there's no
right,
very few,
and so it's like I'm just tickled that people are coming to producers on their first band or first operation of recording music, and wanting to do it in that way.
Yeah. I was going to ask you something, but you just said when you first started working, but was there any producers you wanted to work with? Yeah, I know in high school, I would listen to cassettes, and I'd always say, when my band gets signed, I want David Prater to produce this, or someone like that. David, I say that because he was my guy. Dave, I don't know if you've
Yeah.
heard of Dave Prater, but
Yeah. Well, Nile was probably the first producer on my radar,
huh?
the Duran stuff, and then having noticed that he did all the Chic and Diana Ross B-52, blah blah. I went through that list earlier.
Yeah.
There was a phase in my career where I was doing a lot of industrial type music, and the name Flood would come up quite a bit.
Uh-huh.
Gosh, I'm drawing a blank now. I'm usually pretty good at whipping out a list of at least 5 producers, but yeah, I mean, I guess I'm so versatile. I play a lot of different styles of music, and you have to as a drummer. That's the other
Yeah.
thing, kids. If you want to play drums professionally and full time, you got to be able to play a little bit of everything. You might have
Yeah.
your forte, but if I'm on a private event where I got to bust out the brushes and play some Sinatra, that's what I got to do.
Yeah.
I'm hoping and praying that there's not a real jazz cat in the audience that sees me faking my way through the stirring of the pot there. But
Boo.
no, they won't heckle. They're too classy for that. They'll walk
Yeah.
up to you midway through your break and say, "Hey, kid, I see what you're trying to do up there." Anyway, so I guess it depends. I mean, if it's an adult contemporary album, I want I just had the name in my head and I lost it. Glenn Ballard. If it's
that guy.
I mean, there's just like who's right for the job. But yeah, I have my favorites. I mean, Nile being top of the list, but yeah, it just depends on the operation.
Right on. What's it like? You also work on music for creating music for film trailers. How did you get into that? And what's it like with doing that?
It's very strange work. And I just said I haven't done any, I haven't placed any cues in any trailers in a bit because I've been lazy on that front because it's hard. And here's why. When I moved to LA, I was introduced to a guy by the name of Troy McCubbin, who was the guitar player, touring guitar player for Wilson Phillips. Hey, Glenn Ballard. Yeah, Glenn Ballard. And he stopped doing the road work and got into film trailer work about 8 years prior to me moving here. So he was already in full swing. And he got me involved, and I'm thinking, great. So I'm going to see this video, and I'm going to make noises to picture. He's like, no, that's not how it works. You have a blank canvas, and you make a bunch of weird ass noises, and there's all these weird terminologies, these whooshes, and these drops, and these dive bombs, and like rises, and it's got to make the whole place shake. These noises are insane. And what are okay, so what do I start with? He's like, oh, well, it's, grab some sounds from a synth and just make them bombastic. Like there was a learning curve there and it took me a little while. I'm like, okay, so I got nothing to really cut any sound to. I'm just making a bunch of noises that can range from 1 second to 10 seconds, putting them all in a library on a drive. And then he delivers it to all these trailer companies that I didn't even know existed. I thought when, I don't know, Paramount or whoever puts out a movie, they do the trailers.
Yeah.
No, they hire a third-party company that they're a trailer company. And they're all these, they call them music supervisors. There's barely any music in any of these things. There's all a bunch of weird noises.
Yeah.
And they put it together. They get cuts of the film from the studio that made the film, and they put it together, and then they go in their database of all these creators of noises, like myself at the time, and you have to name these noises that will come up in search engines. So there's all this weird you know,
This is so interesting.
yeah,
The strangest noise you came up with that was used.
we Troy and I went to his backyard with a I'm sure you're hip to the Zoom H6, very high quality handheld recording device with 2 condenser mics. And he just had me bang on different things with different objects, on a fence, on a barn roof, on like just making noises all over the backyard. And we put it together in all these different, library forms and sent it out. And I think I got it placed, a couple of those sounds placed in, a lot of my stuff got placed in like horror movie trailers. And it's the last, like, I don't watch those movies because I have enough anxiety in my life. I don't need to be scared.
Same.
I don't watch any of those. And if you go on my website and go to the audio area, you can see this little YouTube montage of all these. I'm scared to even watch that. I'm like, God, oh my God. And people are getting stabbed and cased. And I'm like, oh my God. One of my biggest placements, the big 3, I got something in Star Trek. And again, these are just the trailers, not the actual films. Star Trek, Star Wars, and Blade Runner. Blade Runner, I was able to put a nice down payment on a car from the Blade Runner thing. And you know what? I watched all the trailers from Blade Runner that year, and I didn't hear the sound that I created. So I didn't even know if they used the damn thing, but the check cashed. So
Nice.
and it goes by duration. So if it's a 1-second queue, you get a few $100. If it's a 10-second queue, you get a couple thousand. It's just weird. So with that blank canvas, that's the hardest part to get past, is like, okay, what am I going to do today? And just make a bunch of noises, put them together. And it's nice mailbox money, because I could be on the road with Skunk Baxter. We could be in Japan. And I think I was in Japan with Jeff, and I got a text message or a call or an email from Troy saying, "Hey mate," he's Australian. "Hey mate, you got a check in the mail," and it's like, it's mailbox money, because it's something I did a year and a half ago. And
That's
boom,
awesome.
it's in some trailer. So very interesting work. Difficult in the sense that you just, like I said, that what's your starting point? And he made the recommendation. Well, go to iTunes and click on the trailers and just check out the trailers that are happening right now, because that'll give you insight to what these music supervisors at the trailer companies are into sonically. Yeah. I'm like, okay, cool. But then I catch myself just watching the trailers and I'm like, oh crap, I got to turn the monitor off and just use my ears and listen. And then that gives me a little bit of starting point. But yeah, you're actually inspiring me to get back into more of that stuff, because I haven't composed anything. My sounds are still in those libraries that are being submitted. So who knows? I could get something, I could land a cue in something tomorrow. Cool. I haven't really generated any new sounds in a while, so I need to get on that. Thanks for reminding me.
You also do work on TV shows like Startup and A Craftsman's Legacy.
Craftsman's Legacy is I think it's still on the air, but I haven't worked on that one in some years. But Startup is my flagship. That's still, we're in season 12.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And we've been around for a while. Have you seen the show? Have you seen the show? Nobody's seen the. I always ask them. Oh. Well, 1.5 million people have seen the show every week for 12 years. So I don't know who these people are.
I will see it now.
They're out there.
See it now.
You know what? It's one of those things. If I love PBS, so I'm watching a lot of stuff on PBS. And I'm not biased, because I've worked on Craftsman's Legacy and a couple other things that. We have going back to the Skunk Baxter thing. We have something on airing on PBS coming up. A little plug here. We did a show at the Analog Hotel in Nashville, and that's going to be televised on PBS before the end of the year. I'm not sure when. Check markdamian.com or skunkbaxter.com for that. But Startup, that was an accidental thing. I had just moved to LA, and I'm busting ass on trying to get the drum gigs and the audio gigs and doing all that. And my best friend since kindergarten calls me up. He's like, I got this TV show and it's actually being picked up by PBS. And I'm like, well, what is it? It's called Startup. And we feature entrepreneurs, people that just hated their day jobs, miserable, and decided to take the leap into starting their own business. And it was very kind of cookie cutter at first of, okay, well, where did you get the capital? And how did you do this? And what were the pitfalls? Blah, blah, blah. Now it's evolved into this more of a people story vibe, like everybody we have 13 episodes this season. You could do 13 episodes on the same damn type of business, coffee shops, but everybody's got a different story of how they did it. So, he talked me into because he's like, you mix music, you want to you want to do audio on the show, because I had seen the show. It finally aired. Season 1 aired 2012, and he calls me up, and I'm like, hey, you're onto something, because there's no other show on the air like it. He's like, well, what do you think? I said, well, it's 26 minutes long. You're cramming 3 businesses in 26 minutes. By the time you get anything comprehensive, you're on to the next thing. So I'm not really grabbing every bit of information. If I'm interested in this topic, you're moving on too quick, and your audio sounds terrible. So he's like, all right, smart ass, do you want to mix the show? I'm like, I don't know anything about TV. Mixing dialogue is different than mixing music. They're like, it's all knobs and faders, man. You'll figure it out. I'm like, no, not going to do it. I'm focused on this LA thing. So season 2 is approaching in 2013. And I flew back to Detroit because they're based in Detroit. I flew back to Detroit to play with another artist, Laith Al-Sadi, that I still perform with quite a bit. And I had lunch with Gary Brado. He's the host of the TV show Startup. And he wouldn't take no for an answer that day. And he caught me at a very vulnerable time because he knew I was losing my ass financially in Los Angeles, not getting the gigs yet, doing everything I could to survive. And at this lunch that we had, he literally pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table and said, you're mixing this season of Startup. And I said, God, I don't want to mix okay, I'll mix the show, because it was a check for 13 episodes. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. You twisted my arm. So, what a blast, man. It is completely different. And that led to me mixing some documentary films and one feature film that was really hard to do because it was first time director, first time producer, and tight budget. And I never mixed a full length feature film in my life, that was hard. But mixing the TV show, I've gotten really good at it after what I've been on it now for 10 of the 12 seasons, or 11. I don't know. And then, so yeah, it just started airing. I think we're about 3 episodes into the new season on PBS. And it's just an inspiring show. I love, I don't have to talk about the subject, content of the show, because I'm the audio guy, right? Yeah. It's the show, and now I'm the music supervisor. So I'm, I now wear 3 hats. I'm the field audio guy, so I actually go out on the road and shoot the episodes with the crew doing the field audio. And then I managed to weasel in on the music supervision front because they were using terrible music. And I remember being on the road with them on season 4, and the budgets were getting higher, and now they've got 4K cameras and they've got drone operators, and I'm like, and you're gonna make me use the same crappy $100 a year subscription TV music that you've been using? No. So I went out and I got figured out how to be a music supervisor for television. And then post mix. So I got 3 hats on the show.
How is the audio post production different from music production?
Oh my God. The thing that you have to start with is the field audio. Now, I didn't do field audio when I started. I was just mixing the show. And I remember they were feeding me the episodes that year, and I'm getting all the stems, and I use Logic, so I'm putting it all on Logic, and I'm listening to this audio, and I'm like, I remember calling the producers and Gary and whoever would listen. I'm like, who in the hell is doing your field audio? It's terrible. How am I supposed to make this TV ready? Uh, and so I spent, I think, 2 seasons complaining about the field audio. And then by accident, again, I got the field audio job because their field audio guy, right before a 6-week tour of the West Coast, was deported or something. I don't know. He wasn't able to do it. So they're like, what do you know about field audio? I'm like, absolutely nothing. They're like, all right, you're the guy. We'll see you in Seattle in a week. I'm like, oh, shit. Okay, so I'm reading manuals. I'm watching YouTube videos. Okay, sound devices 788. I don't know. Okay, lavalier mics. I remember shaking, miking the first person up that we were interviewing, and and then so when I got the experience of doing the field audio work, it was like, oh, I get it. You're not in a controlled environment like you are when you're miking an amplifier in a booth or in a drum room, miking up. You're completely cut off from the world. Sonically, you have no window. Like, you can hear a pin drop and everything's perfect. You're doing an interview and there's planes flying by and there's trains going. You got traffic noise. Oh, they want to do a segment next to an indoor pool and it's cavern. It's like, can we not do this interview in this area? They're like, nope, this is what the director wanted. I'm like, oh God, So the environment's completely different, So that's I guess it's the main thing. The rest of it is all EQ and compression and knobs and faders, but the source material is completely different. And you've got people that don't necessarily have the best sounding voices being interviewed. At least when you're in a studio situation, you could fire the singer if they're not a good singer. You're on this interview and you've got to make it sound the best that you can. You can't work miracles, but I've got some software that sure makes it sound like I can make miracles happen. But back in the day when I didn't know what I was doing everything very primitively. If there were pops and clicks, I was automating EQs to take those frequencies out. I was doing the work like they had to 30, 40 years ago because I just didn't know and I didn't have the software. But that was great to learn that way because now I know what this fancy software is actually doing and I know how to finesse those things. It's not just pointing and clicking at this stuff. You gotta have to. There's a little bit of finessing these things and the know-how, but I remember those early days just trying to make stuff sound good. And I'm scared. Every episode, I think we have 156 episodes now. They're all on demand on PBS's app, so you can check them out. But I'm scared to watch something from season 4 or season 5 when I was mixing it for the first time because I'm like, oh my God, I can't imagine what the hell it sounded like compared to my work now. What used to take me a week and a half is now taking a couple days. It's the music supervision part that's kind of the grueling work because you got to really figure out where to put the stuff, where to put these music cues, put an appropriate music cue, subject matter, geographic location. All these things come into play with your choices of the music that's being put into this show. I was and still am a huge fan of Anthony Bourdain's shows, and that's the benchmark that I used. And that's the budget that I wanted for music, but I didn't get that. I tried. API in New York is who did all the music for for Anthony's shows. And I think Gary, the host and creator of Startup, really got tired of me talking about Anthony Bourdain on every show. I'm like, well, Anthony's crew would have done it like this. And oh man, maybe we should go into something a little deeper, like a Bourdain episode. So yeah, that was the benchmark for me. I loved all his shows, No Reservations, Parts Unknown, and even what was it, 24-hour Layover was kind of the, weird show of like him just being in a spot for a day. What do you do in Tangier for 24 hours or whatever, so, and I still watch. It took me a little while. I stopped watching because it was too painful, because his passing and how it happened and all. I couldn't watch it for a little bit, but now I just discovered on Amazon Prime there's an entire Anthony Bourdain channel to where I can watch my fill of Anthony Bourdain 24/7.
Right on, man.
So
Well,
yeah,
I want to ask you a little bit about Skunk Baxter. When we got your one sheet and I read that, what was it like? I got a few questions that'll run together. What was it like getting that call? Number two, like Skunk Baxter can get anybody he wants,
indeed.
And what's
Why
it
the
like?
hell would he want me?
Not well, like that says a lot that you're the guy,
Yeah.
And what's it like playing with that cat live?
Never a dull moment. I mean, where do you start? Okay, so how did I get the gig? And I love telling this story because this is another one of these things that just from the conversation that we've had in the last 45 minutes, whatever it's been, diversify thy portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
To make it. Now, we can't all be John Taylor. We can't have that career. Believe me, in 1984, when I got the Sing Blue Silver documentary on VHS and I watched it every day for a year, I'm like, that's what I want to do with my life. I want to be in that kind of band and have that kind of success. What do I do? Well, let's get the manual out and go down the checklist of how to be, that level. That doesn't happen for everyone, especially since 2001 to now, music industry. It just you've got to diversify. So me going into the audio world was a great move. Me accidentally getting into film trailer work and TV audio, which led to film, documentaries, feature films, stuff like that. But to tie this into just this instrument, yeah, you're right. Skunk has worked with everybody. He's on over 300 records.
Yeah.
He's in the Hall of Fame twice, once with Steely Dan, once with the Doobie Brothers. He's on, if I go through my vinyl collection and read the liner notes, he's probably on, at least 35% of those records in that collection.
Yeah.
Donna Summer, Dolly Parton, blah, blah, blah. He's worked with Vinnie Colaiuta. He's worked with Steve Ferrone. He's worked with, name J.R. Robinson, all my favorites, And when they finished, and oddly enough, the guy never put out a record of his own until 2022. So that's what. So C.J. Vanston is a co-writer and producer of the record. Great keyboard player, amazing cat, and I think for 10 years he was Joe Cocker's, MD, music director and keyboard guy. Barbara Streisand, Tears for Fears. The guy's worked with a lot of different people. And I would come in contact with him through my buddy Jordan, who was the keyboard tech for Toto for a lot of years. So it was just, we kind of crossed paths and CJ had just finished the record with Baxter. We had met, CJ and I, we had met a number of times, whether it would be at NAMM or one of the hangs in town here in LA. He was rehearsing. My studio is right across the street from Mates. I don't know if you know Mate. They've got a couple different locations, but this is Cleon, and Cleon is chock full of all these rehearsal studios and places like this. So he was actually rehearsing with somebody across the street and came to my studio and said, "Wow, this is great. You got this kit. It's always mic'd up and ready to roll. I'm glad I know this is here because my studio is right down the street." Blah blah blah. We'd cross paths at least a dozen times over the course of 7 years. And when they finished the record and they started making plans for touring, he called his buddy Jordan, who's the keyboard tech for Toto at the time, saying, "Hey, look, there's no shortage of great drummers in town. We can find one, but we're looking for a drummer that can sing. And we're looking for a drummer that knows his way around electronic drums because we want production on this tour. We want triggered, stuff from the record. And some of the songs are straight up electronic, kick, snare, hi-hat, electronic. So hybrid kit and know how to sample and blah, blah, blah. So those three things, the list got down to me. And Jordan said, I only got one guy that does all three of those things well, and it's Mark Damian. And, this is not the first time that Mr. Jordan put my name in a hat for something. So when he called me and said, Skunk Baxter and CJ Vanson are going to call you for this tour. Okay, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I started laughing. I'm like, yeah, bullshit. Okay, and then like a week later, I get a call. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. They're actually interested. They're like, yeah. So, we want to set up a Zoom meeting and with the three of us, Jeff and myself and you. And I'm like, cool. No audition. They just went off of what Jordan's reference was. And they had to have checked out stuff on my website. Because they just weren't going to go out on a limb. But yeah, I met with them via Zoom and had a nice meeting. And, I talked to Jeff one-on-one for a little bit while CJ stepped away. And he's like, what do you think of the record? Do you even like it? I'm like, I haven't heard the record. I don't even know, but I'm sure it's really good. And I'm sure I'm really going to enjoy it. So whatever it is, I'm in. And it was a lot of work. It was like a month of pre-production with CJ at his studio, figuring out what I'm going to play, what's going to be on the backing, the playback, what I'm going to sample. If it was isolated or if it was a loop, could I recreate that snare drum sound on my own? Like, it was a lot of stuff to do. And I was just happier than a pig in shit to do it because, CJ Vanston and Skunk Baxter. Yes. Playing with it. And like I said earlier in the conversation, I asked him, I said, okay, so we're getting really into the nuances of all the stuff that's on the record and triggering all this. Do you want this note for note? And they're like, oh, no. You be you. We like your playing. We like what you bring. And, that was all I needed to hear, and nobody's ever turned around and said, that Phil is a little over the top, or nobody's ever done that. So I must be doing something right at because I've been with them for 2 years now. Cool. It's Jeff is very, the real signature solos, like, Ricky, Don't Lose That Number. You're not going to change anything about that solo. That's signature. But all the other songs, it's never the same twice. Every night is a little different. So even though we're kind of married to the technology, the tracks that are going on, not that there's a whole lot, there's some loopy things, and the bit doing what you do. There's the stuff that you can't really recreate, the weird noises that we want there. So so you're on the grid, but we find ways to still stretch out on that stuff and make it seem like we're not on that grid.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to the encores, like Ricky and Black Friday and that kind of stuff, I get to pull the in-ears out, and we're a band now without the technology. It's a lot of fun. He the guy just loves to play. What is he, 70, 75, 76 years old?
Yeah.
He has more energy than I do on the road. I don't know how that works because he eats terrible too. He'll go into 7-Eleven and get those hot dogs that have been rolling around in there for like God knows how many months.
I might have been behind him in line one night.
Me and CJ are looking for the 4-star, but yeah, he doesn't ask much, and he loves to play, and he loves his work with the government too. I don't know if you know that side of it. Oh, baby. all the phone calls that he takes backstage,
Yeah.
hold on, I got to take this, the red phone uh, but yeah, missile defense systems consultant for the Pentagon and plays guitar. And half the stuff, if not all the stuff on stage that he's playing, he designed. So he's a very, very intelligent cat, real sweet guy. Calls me on the regular, even when we're not on the road. He lives 9 minutes down the street from me in Sherman Oaks. So it's like, hey man, you want to go grab some, dinner or whatever? And I'm like, I'm mixing this damn TV show right now. I'm sorry, I can't go. Because TV deadlines and eating everything yesterday. But no, we have dinners and we hang, and I'll come to the house, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, and we don't have anything booked for the rest of this year, but we have a great show coming up on a cruise. We're doing a Rock Legends cruise, from Miami to the Bahamas. I'm terrified of boats, but I used to be terrified of planes too, and I got over that real quick. So I'm not too happy about being on water for 7 days, however long it is. But the lineup is amazing. Alice Cooper, Styx, John Waite, Foghat, Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin, Evening with Led Zeppelin, whatever he calls it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to,
man.
oh man, and that's in February. I'd say go out and buy a ticket, but it's already sold out.
Hey, those are very popular these days.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Sort of. I still don't like being on water
yet. Mark, man, we appreciate you taking time to do this. Where can people find out information about you, what you're doing, your drum lessons, all of that?
Yeah, drum lessons, music producer, mixing engineer, Renaissance man,
all the artist.
Yeah, all the stuff is on my website, markdamian.com. That's MarkDamian. I do a pretty decent job of keeping up on that site to where it's current. So yeah, markdamian.com.
Do you have Instagram or?
I have an Instagram. Yeah, I'm not hard to find on it's Mark Damian, as long as you spell it right. Mark with a K, Damian with an A-N, not an E-N. So yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I've got my personal account and my artist account, Mark Damian, drummer / producer. And yeah, come find me. You got something to produce or to mix, or you want to learn how to play drums, or you want to come see a Skunk Baxter show, or that Duran tribute that I play with occasionally. Yeah, it's all on the website.
Right on, man.
Don't you also do forensic audio enhancement?
I did boy, you really did your research, didn't you?
I do.
Oh man. Well, yes, I did. And that became a little bit of a terrifying job because of the subject matter that I would have to listen to.
Yeah.
It was not fun. It paid very, very well, but at what cost? I was dealing with the dregs of society, listening to some hideous, whether it was interviews of people giving details of crimes, rape victims. It was bad. I didn't want any part of it anymore. Even at $250 an hour, I didn't want any part of it anymore. Because it was, I think the final straw was I was hired by a family and I didn't know. I found out the hard way which side they were on in terms of a particular person committed this hideous crime and I'm helping them. No, I can't sleep at night with that. So I got in and out of that business very quickly, but yeah, it might be still mentioned on the website somewhere. And I'm going to take that down because I don't want those calls anymore. This is brutal, man. Brutal. Like I said, paid amazing. But yeah, I couldn't stomach this stuff.
Yeah. Understandable.
Yeah.
Well, man, we appreciate you taking the time. Our podcast, if you've listened, it's called "Is Breakfast Included?" And if we were having breakfast, which something tells me we might cross paths with you and have breakfast with you, what would you have?
I would love to make you guys breakfast.
Hey, I'm down with that too.
I'm quite the good in the kitchen these days, and I make a mean breakfast burrito, which always everything includes bacon. So I don't know if you're anti-bacon or not.
No,
can hold
no.
the bacon if you need me to, but
No.
Good bacon.
but no, I like scrambled soft eggs and bacon and a little sriracha with a mixture of green pepper, onion, and mushrooms if I have them. Mushrooms are kind of hard to keep as a single guy. You got to buy the fresh mushrooms in that big quart or whatever it is, and they go bad. If you don't, and I'm not eating that many mushrooms, so sometimes I don't have the mushrooms. But either way. I'm a big fan of breakfast, and I like my breakfast burritos. I like croissants. And as long as it has bacon on it, I'm good.
Hey, man, you're good in our book.
Bacon. The deli, but the stuff that you get fresh from the deli, not that crappy bacon.
Crispy bacon, yeah.
Yeah.
We're both fans of bacon. And if we go to a bad bacon spot, we'll let them know.
Oh man, absolutely.
Mark, it was good talking to you, man. I'm glad that Michelle Cooper, we have to give her props, connected.
I was gonna, I had it in my memory to give her props for letting you guys know about me and setting this up.
Yeah, I'm glad we were able to set this up and schedule it. Like I said, it was a lot of fun for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Great questions, by the way.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day, boss.
You too. Thanks.
Right on. Mark Damian. Great guy, right? If you're out there and you see him playing with Jeff Skunk Baxter, make sure you check him out. If you're going to be on the Rock Legends cruise, he'll be out there playing for Jeff. It's going to be a great time. You can find out more about Mark at markdamian.com. Last name is spelled DAMIAN.com, or check out his Instagram at Mark Damian. And while you're online stalking Mark, because we know you're going to be, check out our page, isbreakfast.com. You can link to our YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Go to our Apple Podcast, rate and review the show. Leave us a comment. Check it out. And then mosey on over to our online store and pick yourself up a shirt. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. I'm done. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.